What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my 1991 Acura NSX. So I just recently got COVID for the second time. The first time was around Christmas of last year, and this time it hit me way harder. Last time it took me like 2 to 3 days to recover, barely had any symptoms. But this time I've been pretty dang sick for the last week and a half. And as a result, all of my normal videos that I was planning to shoot have been put on hold, but I still wanted to get a video out to you guys this week. And so I'm going out on a solo night drive. I'm definitely taking a leaf out of the Topher's book with this one. And this may very well be the last time I do a canyon drive in the NSX in its current form. As I mentioned in my last video, I'll be installing some parts on my NSX very soon. So there's a good chance this will be the last time I drive it with the stock suspension and stock brakes. Now, apologies if I do have to clear my throat a few times throughout the video. I've just been hacking up a storm over the last week, but hopefully in a couple days here, I'll be all better and back to normal. With that said, enjoy the NSX at night. Pretty scary driving at night when there's no street lights. These early 90s pop-up headlights are not the brightest. What do you guys recommend for a headlight upgrade? I still want to keep the stock pop-up headlights. I don't plan to do the O2 Plus front end with the fixed headlights. What are my options for getting a brighter projector? Not sure if you guys can really hear through the video, but this Pride V2 RFL exhaust does exhibit some drone around 2,000, I would say, to around 2,800 RPM. Once I get up to 3,000 RPM, the drone reduces dramatically, or I should say the resonance reduces a lot. So when I'm partial throttle or heavy on the throttle, from that 2,000 to 2,800 range, the interior of the car actually starts to vibrate from the exhaust frequency. That's honestly my only complaint with this exhaust. I love how it sounds at wide open throttle. It has that really nice high-pitched, aggressive, pretty loud exhaust note, and I love that. It really suits the character of this engine. I just wish it didn't drone as much, again, at the lower RPMs, especially when I'm on the freeway. I'll demonstrate here. In 5th gear, I'm only going around 53 miles an hour, 2,200 RPM. If I put my foot down, you can probably hear that. There's quite a bit of resonance where some of the looser panels on the interior of the car, particularly this dome light here, the plastic has a tendency to rattle really hard when I get on the gas. See there, every time I accelerate through that lower RPM range, you hear a bit of rattles. Then it just opens up at 2,800. Less resonance, less rattles from the interior. So, since my last video, I actually started looking into the JDM 5-speed short gear conversion with the NSX Type R final drive. And it looks like it's not that hard to source a Type R final drive nowadays, but the actual gear set, the JDM 5-speed, that's the part that's very difficult to find. I can't really find it in stock anywhere, including Meta Motorsports as well as Science of Speed. It actually shows in stock on Science of Speed's website, but a friend of mine mentioned that he verified with them recently that it's actually out of stock. Seems like the only reasonable way to source one nowadays is to scour the forums, Facebook groups, and what have you, in the off chance that someone actually is looking to sell their set. And they are like gold nowadays. They're going from anywhere from like $5,000 to $6,000 plus dollars. And I think that's actually on the lower end. So with that being said, after having done this little bit of research, what does that mean for me? At that price point, I honestly cannot justify doing the conversion. I would rather just stick with this very long geared USDM 5-speed, where the second gear will take me all the way out to 81 miles an hour. It's not a problem in daily driving, and actually on track it's not that big of a deal either, because I'm pretty much just between second and third gear. Really the only downside is a small reduction in acceleration compared to if I had the JDM gear set, and just the fact that I don't get to enjoy this manual gearbox as often. Is that the biggest deal for me? It's not ideal, but I'm not about to drop 6, 7, or even 8 grand just to get shorter gears. That's not my priority at all. Before dropping that kind of money, I would rather do some other supporting mods, like some bolt-ons, maybe a header. I guess at the very least, I could do the Type R final drive on its own, but I'm actually not convinced that I want to do that either. Again, this is not a pure track car for me. That's what my BRZ is for. And whatever I replace the BRZ with, that's going to be my primary track car. The NSX will never be my primary track car. So if I am driving it more on the streets, then I do kind of like to have a slightly taller 5th gear so I can have, you know, just a more comfortable drive. Lower RPM, less noise on the freeway, slightly better MPGs. If anything, I would lean more towards just getting the JDM gear set without changing the final drive. Here's what it sounds like with the windows down. Love how this exhaust sounds. So good. Anyways, I can't wait for coilovers and proper front and rear big brake kit. I think those two mods alone will really transform the handling of this car. Like I said in my previous video, I really enjoy driving my stock NSX at around 70% of its performance capabilities. I don't feel the need to push the car to its limit to really enjoy it. Since this is such a communicative car, I can feel everything through the steering, through the chassis. I can enjoy the direct throttle response, this amazing 5-speed shifter. I don't really have to push the car to the ragged edge to enjoy driving it. Now that being said, there are NSXs out there that I've driven that do really set my hair on fire, if you will, when pushed to 90% of its limit or beyond. While I don't necessarily want to take my NSX that far, I do want to split the difference somewhere in the middle where I can still enjoy it on the streets, in the canyons, just driving at a more relaxed pace, but also do the occasional track day and just kind of have the car not really feel too sloppy and fall apart like it does right now. I've only tracked this car twice, once at Thunder Hill and once at Sonoma Raceway, and it didn't do particularly great at either. The suspension is far too soft. In fact, I was actually bottoming out the front going into corners. So it definitely could use a stiffened up suspension, and the brakes are definitely a weak point, these minuscule front and rear brakes. But I'm really hoping I don't sacrifice too much in terms of daily comfort, because as you can see right now, this car is really comfortable. It actually rides significantly better than any other, I would say, sports car that I've owned. Now, that includes the Honda S2000, both AP2 and AP1. That includes my old, if you could call it a sports car, 1991 Honda Civic EM1 SI, which is also bone stock. It also rides better than my old Porsche 987 Cayman S, as well as my old 997.1 Carrera. It even rides better than my brand new Subaru BRZ, even when that thing was on stock suspension. There's just a sort of serene nature to driving this car, especially on the highway. I would say at lower speed, stop and go traffic around town, you do kind of feel the fact that this is a very low to the ground, firm, stiff sports car. But something about driving a stock NSX on the freeway, it's so calming. Going over bumps on the freeway and expansion joints, the high-speed compression and rebound of the stock suspension really soaks up a lot of those impacts. And it makes the car truly feel like a proper GT, a Grand Touring sports car. Same with the long gearing. I know I complain about the long gearing a lot for spirited driving, but on the freeway, it means you really don't have to shift a whole lot. And there's still plenty of torque even in 5th gear. I mean, look at that, from 2200 RPM up to 3000 RPM. I only applied maybe 25% throttle pressure, and I was able to overtake no problem. Very low amounts of wind noise transmitted into the cabin. In some ways, this is more refined than a lot of much newer sports cars. Man, I just love driving this thing. Still my favorite car of all time, the Acura NSX. Can't wait to see what else is in store for this car, besides the upgrades that I've already mentioned. I definitely want to be more active in the NSX community come next year. I was fairly active early on in my ownership, but I've really just kind of been distracted with other projects, I guess you could say, over the last few years. But now I really want to spend some more time and effort on my dream car. If you want to see more of this type of POV video in the future, let me know. I can definitely squeeze them in between some of my normal car reviews. By the way, for those of you questioning why I would quote unquote molest such a clean and stock example. I've owned this car for quite a while and I've enjoyed it plenty in stock form. It's time for me to grow into the next phase of my journey with this car, and that means actually tailoring it to fit my needs and exploring what every part I add to the car changes in terms of its driving characteristic. That's part of the joy of car ownership for me. I'm not the type to just keep my cars minty clean and bone stock. I mean, what's the point? Am I saving it for the next owner? I want to enjoy this car as much as I can on my own, and that's something I haven't done to the fullest, like I said, because of other priorities. But now, since I can spend more time on the NSX, I'm gonna do whatever I feel like doing with it, and modding it is what I want to do. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me once again. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.